I'd like to call committee back to order. We are reviewing the budget for the Department of Education, Culture and Employment, Key Activity, Labour Development and Advanced Education. Does anyone have any questions on this key activity? Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to, as I'm on page 51, and trades and occupation wage subsidy, and just looking at, I see in 1819 it was 655, and it got bumped up to almost double next year. What was the reason for that? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Thank you. There was no change in the budget. It's just the actuals were low that year because it was undersubscribed. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I should have looked at it. I didn't have my glasses on. With respect to the wage subsidy of the $1,072,000, is that allocated by region or by need? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Yeah, based on need.
Thank you. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Saturnino to perhaps provide a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Saturnino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Trades and Occupations Wage Subsidy is allocated at a regional level, and it's based on the number of apprentices distributed throughout the regions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Saturnino. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the wage subsidy program is not used up, what happens to the funds that are sitting there? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the fund is distributed on a needs basis, basically first come, first serve. It's not allocated per region, say a quarter or a fifth to each region. It's just it's first come, first serve and needs. The funds that aren't allocated just go back into the general, they don't get spent basically, they go back into the general coffers just like any other budget line that isn't fully spent. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the problems that I guess I found with the trades programs, I guess, or with the trades, I guess, in itself, is that we don't have enough tradespeople to provide the, I guess, the ticket for which the apprentices can work under. Is there any intent or any interest in your department looking at other methods to make this happen? For instance, my understanding is that you have to have somebody on payroll, and which to me means you pay somebody $1 a year and remuneration, and that should be sufficient. Would that be an option? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Thank you, and I'm very familiar with this. I've had constituent businesses who have brought this issue to my attention time and time again, and I have had discussions with the department about what we can do to address this issue. Questions earlier in the House today reminded me of this. You know, dental hygienists can't perform their work because there's no dentist around. Similarly, apprentices can't get their hours and can't move to journey persons because there's no journey persons around. So we've discussed some different approaches, and in the mandate we have an item in there that somewhat speaks to it in broad terms, that we're looking at ways to allow apprentices to get those hours without having that constant supervision of a journeyman around, whatever that might look like. That is not a fully formed plan yet, but the concept is there to address this very exact need the member is speaking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my understanding is the ratio is kind of, it's 2 apprentices per journey person. Is that the ratio that's allowed right now? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And are you considering changing that ratio as well to say maybe 3 or 4 or 5 apprentices per journey person? Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister.
Thank you, and that flexibility is available. We can do that without, from my understanding, without a change to the regulations or any acts. And so, again, that's the type of initiative we might be looking at. We need to be flexible. We have journeymen retiring at an accelerating rate, it seems like, and we have not been doing what we need to do to replace them over the past number of years. And all across Canada, we're facing a shortage in skilled labor, and just like anything else, the North is an extreme example of that. So, this is at the front of my mind. We're not going to build local economies. We're not going to keep money in the North unless we can increase the number of apprentices and journey persons in the territory, and I'm fully committed to doing my best to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Hay River South.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Earlier today, I raised the issue of only year 1 and year 2 of apprenticeships being covered. And I had read somewhere where it said that in year 3 and 4, government expected that these apprentices would basically pay their own way. And I can tell you right now that that's not the case. With the economy the way it is that a lot of small employers, if they have apprentices working, they'll keep them on. If they know they're getting that subsidy, they'll keep them on even if they don't have enough work, and maybe have them do other things. So the subsidy is very, very important, and I think you need to know that. And I think it should be expanded to year 3 and 4, and I think it might have been like that before. I'm not sure, but I would urge your department to look at least considering year 3 and possibly year 4, because it's like anything else. It's like going to university. You go for 4 years. When you come out, you still don't know anything. You still have to, and if you think you know it, then you don't know anything. So, and it's the same in this case as well. I think it's important that we give these the apprentices every opportunity to succeed, and it's important that we also make sure that the employers who are taking a chance on them provide that same opportunity. So, I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but they can comment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Hay River South. Minister, do you want to respond?
Sure, and similar to the comments I made earlier today in the House, I'm open to looking at that, because I get calls from businesses all the time who are just doing their best to stay employed, or to stay open and keep people employed. And sometimes this subsidy, or the little bit of help they can get, makes a difference between having to lay someone off and helping someone get to that next year. So we'll do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Next on my list, I have a member for Cam Lake.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I've got a few questions. My first is for the apprenticeship and occupational certification line. How many apprenticeships are currently involved in the program? Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister.
320. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Cam Lake.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm wondering if on page 51, under grants, there's workforce development agreement, and under contributions, there's also the bottom line of workforce development agreement. I'm wondering if the minister can speak to the differences between these two line items and why one is going up and the other is going down. Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister?
Thank you. If you don't mind, I'd like to let Mr. Saturnino answer that.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Saturnino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Workforce Development Agreement is a federal labour market agreement that we signed with Canada. And what you're seeing here are two distinct line items, one that funds individuals that access the program and also employers, and the other that funds organizations. And essentially, unlike the territorial budget lines, in this particular area, we can spend in either area, and so as long as we don't go over the maximum. So if the demand is for the grants, we can exceed the amount as long as we're not exceeding the total. And so we have that flexibility under our federal labor market agreement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Saturnino. Member for Cam Lake?
Okay, so just so that I understand, the difference is whether we're funding an organization or an individual, a specific individual or an employer, but we can shuffle money between the two as long as they're going for the, as long as they're consistently going for workforce development. Is that correct?
Thank you, member. Minister?
That's correct.
Thank you, Minister. Member?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My next question is in regards to Aurora College. I'm wondering if the minister can tell us both the number of graduates from last year and the number of students. Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister?
Thank you. If you'll just give me a moment, I have to pull up that information. Thank you. So in 1819, we had 486 full-time students and 1,523 part-time students enrolled, and I will get you the graduation numbers shortly.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Cam Lake?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm going to work my way down to the literacy funding line item. Is that federal grant money or is that N.W.T money, just so that I'm reading this right? Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's territorial.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Cam Lake?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I've noticed that over time, this funding between 2018-19 actuals to the main estimates for this year seems to be going down to the tune of approximately $500,000. Is this a trend that we can expect to continue to see over the life of this Assembly? Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister?
Thank you. I believe that there hasn't been a change in the budget necessarily, but there were unbudgeted contributions there were unbudgeted contributions that are now budgeted for, and those are to Deshinta College in Ordeep.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. On page 50, the fourth line item up from the bottom says interest. I'm wondering if the minister can speak to what this line item is. Thank you.
Thank you, member for Cam Lake. Minister?
Thank you. That is quite specific. Perhaps I should pass it over to the associate or Assistant Deputy Minister for Corporate Services.
Thank you, Minister, Associate Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have that information in front of me right now, but we can certainly track that down and get it for the member. Thank you.
Thank you. Member for Cam Lake.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. That was my last question for those pages, and I'm just curious as to, we just don't see too many line items that say interest within the budget, so I'm just wondering what we're paying interest on. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Cam Lake. Are there any further questions on this page? Member for Tabacha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a comment and one question on Aurora College. You know, I come from, of course, from Fort Smith and the constituency of Tabacha, and Aurora. We're very proud of Aurora College and the campus of Fort Smith. We have a lot of incredible staff there that are very qualified, that do have doctorate degrees and have a wide variety of academics that come to that college. And but it's not filled to capacity. And so the intake is extremely important to the community of Fort Smith. Aurora College has been there since, that's where it started in 1969. And I just want to make sure that that you consider doing probably a more media and more better job at making sure that the intake in those programs are looked at in a more positive way. Maybe it's because of all the talk of the Polytech, that's why some of the programs have been lacking. I don't know. But I know that as an MLA for Tabacha and supporting the staff and the students of that college, I would like to see more emphasis placed on the intake into the programs and utilize those beautiful facilities that we have in Fort Smith. And I want you to consider that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member for Tabacha. Minister, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate the member's comments. She's been a very passionate supporter of Aurora College. You know, as I hope everyone is, it's an institution that has reach into almost every community in the territory and has the potential to, you know, to help the territory move forward, you know, into a new future, new prosperous future. The intake, you know, has been an issue, obviously. I know one of the former member from Tabacha used to teach at that college, and he said that years ago he'd have 30 students in his class, and he saw it dwindle year after year after year. And when I was I know people who had been there 10 years ago, and they said the campus was much livelier. And it's a beautiful campus. I mean, it has great student spaces, and we need to get more students through those doors. One of the things I really want to do and work with the college on is just promoting the college in general. I never knew what the inside of that college looked like. I didn't know the great facilities they had. I didn't know, you know, the quality of education you could receive there. And I was, you know, grew up 3 hours from the college. So we need to do a better job getting out there and showing everyone what we have to offer, and fill up those classes, both in Fort Smith and in Inuvik. You know, and there's a lot of issues why we can't do that sometimes. I know I toured the college with MLA Semler in Inuvik, and there were issues about, you know, students having, you know, the proper prerequisites to get into the course, and, you know, the supports needed to stay in the course. So there's a lot of, it's more than just, you know, promoting it or getting the word out. It's going to take a government-wide approach, really, a territorial approach. We need everyone to buy into education and everyone to be as passionate about the college as the MLA for Tabacha is. And I'm working on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Any further questions on this page? Labor, development, and advanced education? Seeing none, I'm going to call the page. Education, culture, and employment, labor, development, and advanced education, operations expenditure summary, 2020-2021 main estimates, $54,431,000. Does committee agree? Does committee agree? Thank you, members. At this point, we are going to go back to the department summary on page 29. Are there any questions on the department summary? Minister.
Thank you. To answer the member for Kamloops' question, there were 112 graduations at the college. There are also completions, which aren't graduations, and I'll get those numbers for the member by tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. So, are there any comments on this page? Are we ready to complete this department? Mr. Norn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that this committee defer further consideration of the estimates for the Department of Education, Culture, and Employment at this time. Mr. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Norn. The motion is being distributed. The motion is in order. To the motion. Question has been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? The motion is carried. Thank you, Minister, for answering our questions today. Thank you to your witnesses. Sergeant-at-Arms, please escort the witnesses from the chamber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the chair rise and report progress. What's your show?
Thank you. The chair has, Mr. Norn has suggested that we rise and report progress. The motion is in order. The motion is non-debatable. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion is carried. I will now rise and report progress.
you. I have the report of Committee of the Whole, member for Yellowknife Centre.
Mr. Speaker, your committee has been considering table document 30-19 brackets 2, main estimates 2020-2021, and table document 43-19 brackets 2, supplementary estimates infrastructure expenditures number 1, 2020-2021, and we would like to report progress on table document 30-19 brackets 2 with 2 motions carried. And Mr. Speaker, I move that the report of the Committee of the Whole be concurred with.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Member for N.W.T. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion is carried. Third reading of bills. Third reading of bills. Mr. Clerk, orders of the day.
Orders of the day for Wednesday, March 4th, 2020, 1:30 p.m. Prayer, minister statements, member statements, returns to oral questions, recognition of visitors in the gallery, replies to the budget address, day 7 of 7. Returns, acknowledgements, oral questions, returns to written questions, replies to the Commissioner's address, petitions, reports of committees on the review of bills, reports of standing and special committees, tabling of documents, notices of motion, motions, notices of motion for first reading of bills, second reading of bills, consideration in committee of the whole of bills and other matters, table document 30-19-2, table document 43-19-2, report of committee of the whole, third reading of bills, orders of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. This House stands adjourned until Wednesday, March 4th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m.
Order.